She texted, "Can't make it tonight," like it meant nothing. I just said, "Sure." That night, I ordered dinner for one and blocked her before dessert. I remember the glow of my phone screen more clearly than her face that night. The way the message lit up in the dark apartment. "Can't make it tonight." So casual, so harmless, so final. She might as well have said, "I don't care anymore." The three dots blinked for a second before disappearing. No follow-up, no apology. Just that. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. A dozen replies forming and dying in the silence. Support our channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Your clicks help us bring you even better videos. Sure, I typed. One word. It felt sharp, clean, surgical. I hit send, dropped the phone on the table, and let it slide across the wood until it stopped by the edge of the takeout menu I'd left there earlier. The hum of the city leaked through the half-open window, sirens in the distance, laughter from the street below, the metallic echo of the subway rumbling underfoot. The kind of night that used to feel alive. Tonight, it felt like background noise for an ending. The apartment looked smaller when it was quiet. 2 rooms, barely. A kitchen that never smelled like cooking. A couch that still had her pillow dent from last weekend. I stared at it while I ordered dinner, 1 portion, not 2, and tried to ignore how strange it felt to click confirm order without asking, "What do you want?" The app thanked me for my purchase. The city didn't care. When the knock came 25 minutes later, I almost didn't answer. The delivery guy stood there, soaked from the light rain, his hair sticking to his forehead. "Pad Thai?" he asked, his voice tired. I nodded, handed him a crumpled bill, and muttered, "Keep the change." He looked at me like I was a ghost and walked off without another word. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there for a long moment with the brown paper bag in my hand, the smell of peanuts and lime drifting upward. It should have made me hungry. It didn't. I ate half of it, maybe less. The sound of the fork scraping the container was louder than the TV I'd turned on just for company. Some reality show. Faces I didn't recognize, laughter that didn't belong here. I muted it. That's when I noticed the time. 9:47 p.m. She'd usually be here by then, curling up beside me, her perfume cutting through the city air that clung to her clothes. I tried not to think about that. I tried to convince myself she really was busy. But she wasn't. I knew it the moment I looked at her message again. The tone wasn't rushed or distracted. It was cold, detached. The kind of message you send when you're easing out of something, hoping the other person will take the hint. I didn't take the hint. I took it personally. The rain got heavier. I walked to the window, watched the streetlights shimmer across the wet asphalt. People hurried past, umbrellas bumping, cars hissing by, everyone going somewhere, meeting someone. I'd been part of that rhythm once. Dinner dates, late-night walks. The warmth of someone's hand in mine as neon signs painted us in shifting colors. Tonight, the city was moving without me. I don't remember deciding to block her. It just happened. My thumb hovered over her name, her last message glowing pale blue in the chat window, and then I tapped the screen. "Block this contact?" the phone asked. I hesitated, just for a heartbeat, like there was still a choice. Then I pressed yes. The notification disappeared. Her name vanished from my favorites list. The silence deepened. It felt good for a second. Clean, like wiping a table after a messy meal. Then it didn't. That's when the knocking started. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks, the kind of dull, rhythmic sound you think you hear when you've been staring at one thing for too long. But it came again. Soft, deliberate. 3 knocks, then silence. I turned toward the door. "Yeah?" I called out, but my voice cracked. No answer. Just the faint hum of rain on the hallway window. I waited. Nothing. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. The light above flickered once and buzzed like a dying insect. I looked down. There was something on the doormat, a folded piece of paper, slightly damp from the rain. My stomach tightened. I bent down, picked it up, unfolded it. No handwriting, just a printed note, maybe from a cheap printer. "You shouldn't have done that." I froze. The air around me felt heavy, pressing in. I checked the hallway again. Doors closed, silence stretching down both sides. I shut the door quickly, locked it, and pressed my back against it, the note still in my hand. My first thought was her. Had she come by? No, that didn't make sense. She'd never been the type for drama, and even if she had, how would she know I'd blocked her so quickly? Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe it wasn't about me, but it was on my door. My name was on the mailbox. Someone knew where I lived. I tossed the note on the kitchen counter and told myself to forget it. It was probably a prank, some neighbor's kid being weird, or maybe the wrong apartment. I tried to convince myself of that while washing the dishes, while brushing my teeth, while lying in bed staring at the ceiling. The rain kept going. So did my thoughts. Sometime after midnight, I heard it again. The knocking. This time it was louder. Not frantic, but steady. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I got up, grabbed my phone, and tiptoed toward the door. The peephole was a small circle of distorted light, the hallway bathed in yellow from the flickering bulb. No one there. I backed away, my breath shallow. The sound stopped. I stood there for what felt like an hour, phone still in my hand, staring at the door like it might start bleeding words. When I finally crawled back into bed, I kept the lights on. By morning, the city was awake again. Car horns, footsteps, the smell of coffee from the shop downstairs. The night felt like something I'd imagined, a fever dream, stitched together from loneliness and regret. The note was still on the counter, though. Real paper, real ink. I stared at it while drinking cold coffee. Around noon, I texted my friend, Ethan, the kind of friend you don't talk to often, but think of when things get weird. Hey, random question, I typed. If someone left a note at your door saying, you shouldn't have done that, what would you do? He replied 2 minutes later. Depends. What did you do? Blocked someone, I said. Damn. Dramatic much? Probably just her messing with you. Yeah, I wrote. Probably. But the truth was, I didn't believe that. That evening, I came home to find another note. Same paper, same font. Slid under the door this time. It read, We see what you did. I don't know what scared me more, the words themselves or the we. The note sat on the kitchen counter for an hour before I could bring myself to touch it again. The words, We see what you did, looked different in daylight. They didn't belong to the world of coffee and morning radio. They belonged to the space between midnight and memory, where nothing made sense and everything felt too close. I ran my fingers over the paper. The texture was rough, like it had been handled too much, or maybe printed on cheap recycled stock. Same font, same spacing. Someone had gone out of their way to make it look impersonal, and that, somehow, made it worse. I checked the hallway again. Nothing but the hum of the elevator and the faint smell of detergent from the laundry room. Apartment 406 across from mine had a new tenant, a woman I'd seen once or twice in passing, always wearing headphones, always avoiding eye contact. For a second, I thought about knocking on her door, asking if she'd noticed anyone strange last night, but the words the shelled, We see what you did, stopped me. If there really was a we, I didn't know who I'd be talking to. I went back inside, double-checked the locks, top latch, chain, deadbolt. Everything was fine. Everything was supposed to be fine. I tried to shake off the feeling that the walls were listening. By the time evening came, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe she'd come by after all. Maybe this was her way of getting a reaction out of me. I even laughed about it, a short, humorless sound that died quickly in the empty room. I opened a beer, turned on some music, something soft, low, just enough to drown the hum of the refrigerator. The rain had stopped, but the streets below still shimmered. From my window, I could see the red neon of the diner across the street flickering through the mist, couples sitting by the window, laughing over fries and milkshakes. I stared too long. When my phone buzzed, I flinched. It wasn't her. It was an unknown number. No name, no photo, just a single message. You shouldn't ignore us. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, my thumb shaking slightly as I typed back, Who is this? No reply. The typing bubble appeared for half a second, then vanished. I called the number. Straight to voicemail, a robotic voice, not even personalized. The number you have dialed is not available. The city outside seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the distance a siren started and faded. I closed the blinds, locked the window. My reflection in the glass looked pale, almost hollow. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the wind brushing against the pane, footsteps in the hallway that could have been mine or someone else's. I lay there staring at the ceiling until the first light bled through the curtains. Around 7 a.m., there was another knock, 3 times, slow, deliberate. I froze. The air felt thick, unmoving. I didn't move for nearly a minute, listening. When I finally reached the door and looked through the peephole, I saw a figure standing there, tall, wearing a hood. Not moving, just standing. "Who's there?" My voice came out dry. No answer. They turned slowly and walked down the hall. I couldn't see their face, just the back of the hooded sweatshirt, dark jeans, white shoes. I waited until they turned the corner before I opened the door. Nothing on the floor this time. No note. Just silence. I called the front desk. The building had a security guard during the day, a guy named Victor, mid-40s, built like someone who used to be a cop, but stopped caring. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, this is apartment 408, I said. "Did anyone come by my floor just now? A visitor?" "Not that I saw," he said, his voice dragging with fatigue. "You expecting someone?" "No, just someone knocked on my door. Tall guy, hood." Victor sighed. "Could be a delivery, or maybe a neighbor. You want me to check the cameras?" "Yes, please." He called back 15 minutes later. "Weird thing," he said. "The cameras caught someone on your floor around that time, but the face was covered. They didn't go to any other doors, just yours. Then they left through the stairwell." My throat tightened. "Can you tell where they went after that?" "Not really," he said. "They left the building, didn't come back. You should file a report if it keeps happening." "Right," I said. "Thanks." When I hung up, the silence filled the room like water. I sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, watching my own reflection flicker faintly against it. I thought about calling her, unblocking her, just to see if she'd pick up. Maybe she'd know something. Maybe she'd admit it was all a joke. But that idea of hearing her voice again after everything made something twist inside me. She'd chosen to end it with a text. I wasn't giving her another chance to talk first. That night, I went out. The city was alive again, humming with neon and traffic, wet pavement reflecting lights like spilled gasoline. I walked without direction, past the diner, past the pharmacy, through a row of bars that all smelled of beer and heartbreak. I ended up in one of them, sitting at the counter with a whiskey I didn't want. The bartender, a woman with tired eyes and hair pulled back in a messy bun, gave me the kind of look you give to someone who's been sitting alone too long. "Rough night?" she asked. "Something like that." She nodded, wiped down the counter. "City's full of ghosts," she said. "Sometimes they follow you home." I almost laughed. "Yeah," I said softly. "Sometimes they do." When I left, the streets were quieter. A mist had rolled in, swallowing the sound of my footsteps. I checked my phone. No new messages. The relief didn't last long. As I reached the corner of my building, I saw something taped to the front door. A note. I tore it off before anyone else could see it. Same paper. Same font. "You can't erase us." My hands were shaking now. I went upstairs fast, locking the door behind me, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I threw the note on the counter with the others. 3 now, each one colder than the last. For the first time in months, I regretted living alone. I tried calling Ethan again, told him everything this time. "You're sure it's not her?" he asked. "Yes." "And you've never told anyone else about her? Like, posted pictures, tagged her?" "No," I said. "She doesn't even use social media." He paused. "Then someone's messing with you. Maybe a neighbor, maybe some creep who got your number from a delivery app. People do weird stuff for fun these days." His logic made sense. It just didn't feel right. "You think I should report it?" I asked. "Yeah, but they'll probably just tell you to install cameras. You should, though. One by the door, one by the window. Peace of mind, you know." That night, I did exactly that. Ordered a set of cameras online, express delivery same day. I installed them myself, one facing the hallway, one facing the street. Watching felt better than being watched. I didn't expect what they'd show me. The next morning, I checked the footage from overnight, half curious, half hoping for nothing. Around 2:13 a.m., the hallway camera caught movement. A shadow, the figure again. Same height, same hood, but this time they didn't knock. They just stood there, facing my door. For nearly 3 minutes. Then they leaned forward, pressing something flat against the wood, another note, and whispered something I couldn't hear before walking away. I replayed it 10 times, trying to read their lips, trying to make sense of the shape of the words. It looked like they said, "You're not alone." The chill that ran through me wasn't just fear, it was recognition. Something about the way they stood, the angle of their shoulders, it felt familiar, too familiar. I spent the rest of the day in a haze, moving through the apartment like a guest in someone else's home. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't eat. My thoughts kept circling back to that video, that figure, that whisper. By evening, curiosity overpowered fear. I replayed the footage again, frame by frame. At one point, when they turned slightly, the light from the hallway flickered over their hand. A ring, simple, silver, distinctive. I knew that ring. She used to wear it all the time. My heart stuttered. It couldn't be her. It didn't make sense. Why would she do this? She was calm, rational, not the type to stalk someone. But the ring, the build, it was too close to ignore. I unblocked her number. My hands were trembling as I typed. If this is you, stop, please. The message sent. No reply. 10 minutes later, the phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number again. Not her contact name. You shouldn't have unblocked her. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. My reflection looked back at me from the black glass. Pale, confused, afraid. I typed, "Who is this?" again, but before I could hit send, another message appeared. "Look outside." I did. Across the street, beneath the flickering diner sign, someone stood in the rain, hood up, face turned toward my window, not moving, just standing there, hands in their pockets, watching. When I blinked, they were gone. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure under the diner sign, still, silent, unblinking, like the city itself had decided to grow a face just to watch me. By dawn, the streets below were slick with rain again, the neon washed out to dull gray. I hadn't moved from the couch. My laptop sat open on the coffee table. The security footage paused on the exact frame where the figure turned slightly toward the door. The silver ring caught the light like a single word whispered through metal. I zoomed in, pixelated the image until it was nothing but squares of color. It didn't matter. My mind filled in the rest. It was her. It had to be. The shape of the wrist, the slope of her shoulders, familiar, intimate details you don't forget, no matter how much you want to. Still, something didn't add up. Why the notes? Why the messages from another number? Why the way they said "we," like there was more than one of them? I got up, moved to the window, and peered down at the street. The diner was open again, same old red sign flickering above its glass front. The same 2 early morning regulars were there, an old man reading a paper and a waitress who looked like she'd been awake since forever. But no one else. No hooded figures, no watchers. By noon, I'd convinced myself it really was her. Maybe she hadn't moved on. Maybe she was angry I'd blocked her. Maybe she wanted to scare me the way I'd made her feel. Invisible, disposable. It wasn't right, but it made sense. And sense was the one thing I was desperate for. I decided to find her. Her office wasn't far. A marketing agency downtown. I still remembered the glass building, the revolving doors, the cafe across the street where we'd met once for lunch when things were still easy. I told myself I'd just walk by, just to see if she was there, just to prove something, though I didn't know what. The city swallowed me whole as I stepped outside. Horns, chatter, the rhythmic hiss of tires on wet pavement. I felt anonymous again, part of the blur. But underneath it all, a kind of static kept crawling through my head, like the noise before a storm. When I reached her building, I stood across the street for almost 10 minutes, watching. People came and went, faces hidden behind umbrellas. Then, through the rotating door, I saw her. It hit me like cold water. Same brown coat, same hair, tied loosely. She was talking to someone, a man, tall, dressed in black, and laughing. Really laughing. Her hand touched his arm. I felt my stomach twist, not with jealousy, but with something deeper, something raw. She looked happy. For a moment, I wanted to run across the street, grab her, demand to know what she was doing, why she'd been standing outside my apartment, why she was playing this game. But she looked right past me, like I was just another stranger in the city crowd. And then she walked away with him. I followed. They went 3 blocks south, turned into a side street where office buildings gave way to apartment complexes. I hung back, far enough to blend in, but close enough to see them disappear into a lobby. Apartment 22. A keypad entry. She punched in a code without hesitation. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, the rain dripping down my color. I didn't know what I expected. To catch her in a lie? To prove she was behind the notes? All I knew was that the person laughing with that man didn't look like someone who'd spend nights tormenting me. By the time I got back home, evening was settling in again, golden light dying between the buildings. My apartment felt colder. smaller. I closed the blinds, turned on every light. The silence was unbearable. The first thing I did was check the camera feed. The hallway view was empty. No movement. No visitors. I let myself breathe. Then I checked the window feed, the street below, the diner. Ordinary, calm. The world had moved on without me. I poured myself a drink, whiskey again, though it burned worse this time, and sat by the window, staring at the skyline as the last of the daylight bled away. That's when the lights flickered, just once. A pulse, like the building taking a breath. Then again. The TV turned itself on, static filling the room. My glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I froze, watching the white noise twist across the screen. Then slowly the static faded. A video was playing. It wasn't from any channel I recognized. No network logo, no sound, just footage. My footage, from the hallway camera. The timestamp read live. I could see my own door. I could see the faint reflection of my lights seeping under it. But the camera feed wasn't still. Someone was walking toward the lens. The hooded figure. They stopped inches from the camera, looking directly into it. The screen pixelated as they leaned close. Then, in a voice so low it felt more like breathing, they said, "You shouldn't have followed her." The screen went black. I stumbled backward, my mind scrambling for logic. Maybe the camera glitched. Maybe someone hacked the feed. But how would they know I'd followed her? No one could have seen me. No one knew where I'd been. My phone buzzed. One message, same unknown number. "You shouldn't run." I didn't even realize I was moving until I reached the door. I yanked it open. The hallway was empty, silent, the same flickering light humming above. I stood there, heart pounding, until a door down the hall opened. It was the woman from 406, headphones off this time. She looked at me with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You okay?" she asked. Yeah," I said, too quickly. She nodded slowly, like she didn't believe me. "You've been getting a lot of visitors," she said. I froze. "What do you mean?" "I see them sometimes," she said. "Late. They just stand there." "Who?" Her eyes flicked to my door, then back to me. "You should keep your lights on." And then she closed her door. The hallway light buzzed again. I shut mine, locked it, slid down against the wood. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. Somewhere deep in the apartment, I thought I heard something move, a soft scrape, like fabric brushing across the floor. I turned slowly. Nothing. Just the stillness of my own fear. Hours passed like that. The city outside roared and then went quiet again. At some point, exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke, the clock said 3:02 a.m. The apartment was dark. Power must have gone out again. I grabbed my phone for light and checked the cameras. The hallway feed was black. The window feed, too. No signal. Then, out of nowhere, a new notification appeared on the app. New device connected. Living room camera. I didn't have a living room camera. The feed came online automatically. I saw myself, asleep on the couch, phone in hand, face half lit by the streetlight filtering through the blinds. The footage was shaky, handheld. Someone was recording me. The camera panned slowly across the room, over the table, the shattered glass, the doorway. Before turning back to me, the screen went dark. I was already on my feet before the realization hit me. Whoever had filmed that was here, or had been, inside. I tore through the apartment, closet, bathroom, under the bed, empty. The air still smelled faintly of rain and something else, something metallic. When I reached the window, I saw it. Across the street, in the diner window, a message written backward in condensation, so it faced me. "Come down." I didn't. I couldn't. I stood there, staring until the letters faded, replaced by the reflection of the neon sign blinking, "Open, open." The rest of the night blurred into fragments. Phone calls to Ethan that went unanswered, pacing the apartment until my legs ached, checking and rechecking the locks. When the sun finally rose, I felt hollow, as if the night had scraped something out of me. I went downstairs anyway. I needed to see. The diner was almost empty. 2 customers, same waitress. The windows were fogged again from the heat. I sat in the same booth that faced my building. The waitress approached. "You okay, Han?" she asked. I nodded. "Did someone write on your window last night?" She frowned. "No, not that I saw. Why?" "Nothing," I said. "Never mind." She left a menu and walked off. I stared at the condensation, half expecting the letters to appear again. They didn't. When I left, I noticed something taped to the door of my building. Another note. This one wasn't printed. It was handwritten. The letters jagged, uneven. "You keep looking in the wrong places." On the back, written faintly in pencil, was an address. It wasn't far, a warehouse district on the edge of town, the kind of place you only go when you have a reason. I didn't have one, except that I couldn't stop myself. As I stood there reading the address again, I realized something I hadn't before. The handwriting, the loops, the slant, I recognized it. It was mine. I stood there in the lobby for a long time, staring at the note as if the letters might rearrange themselves into an explanation. But they didn't. The ink looked like mine, the uneven pressure, the small loop in every Y. I'd written thousands of notes in my life, reminders, grocery lists, the kind of absent-minded scribbles you make without thinking. You know your own patterns. This was mine. The address glared up from the paper like an accusation. For a while, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone had copied my handwriting, easy enough to do. Or maybe I'd written it myself and forgotten. Maybe it was one of those strange lapses people talk about when they're tired or under stress. But I couldn't remember picking up a pen in days. I folded the note carefully, almost tenderly, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Then I looked up at the hallway camera. It stared back at me, red light blinking like an indifferent eye. "Who are you?" I said out loud. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the emptiness. The silence that followed felt alive. By late afternoon, I was pacing the apartment again. I'd tried working, cleaning, even sleeping, but my thoughts kept circling that address. Warehouse district, near the river. I knew the area. I'd passed it before on the train, long stretches of brick buildings, rusted fences, broken windows staring out over empty parking lots. The kind of place the city forgot about. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself I was smarter than that. But as night fell, something inside me, curiosity, fear, guilt, tipped the scale. By the time the city lights came on, I was already halfway there. The cab driver looked at me in the mirror when I gave him the address. "You sure, man?" he asked. "That area's dead at night." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm sure." He shrugged and drove on. The city outside the window flickered by, glass towers giving way to warehouses, the streets growing darker, emptier. When we finally stopped, I could hear the river faintly in the distance, the low hum of machinery from somewhere unseen. "Here," the driver said. "You want me to wait?" "No," I said. "It's fine." I stepped out. The air smelled of rust and rain. The warehouse loomed ahead, 3 stories tall, windows blacked out, a single light burning above the side door. I walked toward it slowly, feeling the crunch of gravel under my shoes. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was cold and stale, the floor covered in dust and fragments of old pallets. My footsteps echoed too loudly. I took out my phone, used its flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness in thin slices. The walls were covered in peeling paint, and graffiti in faded colors climbed toward the ceiling. At first, it seemed empty. Then I saw it. A desk near the far wall, the kind of heavy metal one you find in old offices. On it sat a laptop, open. The screen glowed faintly blue, as if waiting for me. My throat went dry. I approached it, every sound magnified, the hum of the screen, the steady beat of my heart. There was a single file open, video. The title read, "Look." I hesitated, then pressed play. The screen flickered to life. My apartment appeared, my living room, my couch, the faint reflection of my lights. The footage was clear, high quality, like it had been recorded with my own cameras. Then I saw myself walk into frame, same clothes, same tired expression. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, exactly as I had 2 nights ago. The camera angle shifted, and I realized there were multiple feeds, one from each corner of my apartment, even angles I didn't have cameras for. I watched, numb, as my own face turned toward the door. The knocking started. 3 slow knocks. I stood, crossed the frame, opened the door. The hooded figure entered. For a moment, I thought I was seeing old footage, that I'd somehow forgotten all of it. But then the figure spoke, and it was my voice. The sound was distorted, deeper, but unmistakable. "You shouldn't have done that," it said. I stepped closer to the screen, pulse racing. The hooded version of me turned toward the camera, lifted his head. Same eyes, same face, me. I stumbled backward, the phone light trembling in my hand. The video kept playing, the other me walking around my apartment, touching things, moving objects just slightly out of place. The camera panned as if following him, even though no one was behind it. Then the footage froze. A text box appeared on the screen. "You still don't see it, do you?" My phone buzzed. A message. Same unknown number. "Turn around," I did. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw movement near the door. A flicker, a shadow crossing the beam of my phone light. I held my breath, listening. Nothing. Just the distant hum of the city outside. But something was different. The air felt heavier. I turned back to the laptop. The screen had changed again. A new line of text. You left her alone that night. My skin went cold. I scrolled back, confused. What night? The night I blocked her? The night she canceled? My mind tried to piece it together, but the words on the screen kept shifting, morphing into new ones. You didn't answer the call. The sound came then, faint, muffled, from the laptop speakers. A ringtone. A familiar one. My ringtone. The timestamp on the screen read 10:23 p.m. That night. The night she texted. I remembered ordering food, the knock at the door, the first note. I remembered checking my phone again before bed. But I didn't remember any missed call. The screen showed my phone lighting up. Her name, Lena. She had called, and I hadn't answered. The call went on for nearly 2 minutes before ending. Then, in the video, I watched myself turn off the phone and walk away. My hands shook as I pressed pause. No, I whispered. That didn't happen. The air around me felt thinner, pressing in. My head spun. I needed to leave. I closed the laptop, grabbed it by the edges, and nearly ran toward the door. But when I stepped outside, the night didn't look the same. There was a car parked across the street. Black, windows tinted, engine off. But I could feel it, the weight of someone watching. I turned back toward the warehouse. The light above the door flickered once, then went out. When I looked at my phone, there was a new message waiting. You're getting closer. I didn't go home right away. I walked, for hours, through the city, past sleeping shops and empty sidewalks. The streets blurred into one another until I didn't know where I was. Somewhere between exhaustion and fear, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The night she'd canceled, she'd texted me first. Can't make it tonight. But I remembered something else now. Something small, buried. My phone had buzzed again a few minutes later, just as I'd set it down. A second notification. I'd ignored it, assuming it was spam. What if it hadn't been? When I finally reached home, dawn was breaking. The city was gray, the kind of tired color that comes after too much rain. I unlocked my door carefully, every creak echoing through the hallway. Inside, everything looked untouched, except for one thing. The couch cushion was missing, the one she used to lean against when she came over. I stood there, unable to move. Then I noticed the folded paper lying in its place. It wasn't a note this time. It was a photograph, a still image of me, standing in that same spot, looking at the same empty couch, wearing the same clothes. The timestamp on the corner was from 10 minutes earlier. Someone had been here. Again. My phone buzzed. You still don't get it. I typed back before I could think. What do you want? No reply. Just another message, seconds later. Check the videos. I opened the security app with trembling fingers. The hallway feed loaded first, empty. Then the living room feed. There I was, on screen, standing in front of the couch, holding my phone, watching myself in real time. Except I wasn't holding my phone in the footage. My hands were empty. And then on the screen, I lifted my head and smiled. At me. The feed cut to black. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a dull thud, screen cracking like ice. The sound snapped something inside me. Panic, denial, all of it collapsing into one sharp instinct. Get out. I ran. Down the hallway, past the elevator, through the stairwell that smelled of dust and old paint. I didn't stop until I burst out into the street, lungs burning, eyes stinging from the sudden light. The city felt different now, too bright, too loud, like it was mocking me. Every face that passed could have been watching. Every car that slowed could have been waiting. I didn't know where to go. So I walked. Again. I walked until the city turned quiet, until the skyline faded behind warehouses and cranes and the slow crawl of the river. I stood by the railing, looking down at the black water reflecting the faint orange of the rising sun. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I almost threw it into the river, but something stopped me. The screen lit up. One new message. Same number. You're remembering now. I typed back, my hands shaking. Remembering what? The reply came instantly. Why she stopped coming. The city around me was silent. The water below shifted, dark and heavy, and somewhere behind me, faint but real, came the sound of 3 slow knocks. I froze when I heard the knocks. 3 of them, deliberate, spaced perfectly apart, echoing in the hollow air around the river. They came from behind me, from the direction of the street I'd just walked. The sound shouldn't have carried that far, but it did. Sharp, clean, undeniable. For a moment, I didn't turn around. I just stood there, staring at the rippling water below. The city skyline shimmered faintly in the distance, that soft orange halo of dawn washing over the glass towers. Everything felt impossibly still. Then the phone buzzed again in my pocket. "Don't turn yet." I stopped breathing. The message blinked on the cracked screen, the words too calm, too confident. Another buzz followed. "Listen first." Behind me, the air shifted, faint footsteps brushing against concrete, the soft scuff of shoes moving closer. My pulse thundered in my ears. I could feel someone's presence now, close enough that I could sense their breathing, slow and even, like they'd been waiting for me to stop running. Another buzz. "Ask what you need to." I swallowed hard, the words scraping my throat. "Who are you?" No answer. "Why are you doing this?" Still nothing. Finally I turned. She stood there. Lena. Her face was pale in the morning light, her hair a little damp, like she'd been caught in the rain. She wasn't smiling. She looked calm, almost tired. The sight of her hit me so hard my knees nearly gave. "Lena," I whispered. "Don't say it," she said quietly. "Not yet." Her voice sounded exactly the same, familiar, gentle. It made everything around me feel suddenly unreal, like I'd stepped into one of the dreams that used to haunt the edges of sleep. I took a hesitant step forward. "What is this? What's going on? You sent me those messages, the warehouse." "I didn't," she said softly. "Not exactly." I stared at her, trying to make sense of it. "Then who?" She tilted her head slightly, studying me. "You really don't remember, do you?" "Remember what?" "The night I said—" I couldn't make it. Something in her tone made my stomach twist. The guilt that had been simmering in the back of my mind surged forward all at once. "You canceled," I said. "You texted me. You blocked me before I could call," she said. Her eyes didn't accuse. That somehow made it worse. "I tried to reach you again," she continued. "One last time. But you'd already decided I was gone." I felt dizzy. The memory of that night came rushing back. Me sitting on the couch, scrolling through the delivery app, that brief flicker of irritation when her message came through. The silence that followed. I'd told myself I was fine, that I was done chasing anyone who didn't choose to show up. I said, my voice cracking. "You said you couldn't make it. I thought it meant you were done." "I wasn't," she whispered. "I was trying to tell you something else." "What?" She hesitated. "That I wasn't okay." The words hit like a stone dropped into deep water. The kind that doesn't splash, just sinks, straight to the bottom. My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" She looked past me then, toward the river, where the surface shimmered faintly with the reflection of the rising sun. "You weren't supposed to find out this way," she said. "But maybe this is the only way you'd really listen." "Find out what?" Her gaze met mine again. "I didn't make it home that night." For a second, I didn't understand. Then the meaning settled in, slow, unbearable. "You're saying—" I started, but the words failed. She nodded once, barely. "There was an accident. The cab never reached my street." I took a step back, shaking my head. No, this isn't." "It's real," she said quietly, "and you've been trying not to see it ever since." The phone buzzed again in my hand. I looked down. A new message flashed across the screen, from the same number that had been haunting me all week. "Now you remember." The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the concrete. Lena didn't move. She just watched me. Not angry, not sad, just still. "You left the call unanswered," she said softly. "I was calling from the cab. The driver said we'd be late. I wanted to tell you I was still coming, but you didn't pick up." I wanted to deny it, to say I hadn't heard the call, but deep down I knew she was right. I remembered the buzz, faint through the sound of the TV. I remembered ignoring it, because I thought I already knew what she wanted to say. The silence between us stretched, fragile and endless. "What do you want from me?" I finally whispered. She smiled faintly, the smallest curve of her lips. "Not what you think." "Then what?" "I want you to see," she said, "to remember what you erased." "I didn't erase anything." "Yes, you did." Her voice grew softer, almost like she was speaking from a distance. "You shut down. You rewrote the night. You made yourself believe it ended with a message and a meal alone. You turned grief into irritation, regret into silence." Her words pierced through me, one by one. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "I wasn't ready to go," she said. "But neither were you." The light around her flickered then. not fading exactly, but shifting like a ripple through a reflection. For the first time, I realized there was no shadow under her feet. I took another step forward, voice trembling. Why now? Why come back? She looked at me for a long moment before answering. Because you were finally willing to listen. The phone buzzed again on the ground. A final message appeared across the cracked screen. Goodbye. When I looked up, she was already gone. The space she'd occupied shimmered faintly, a distortion in the air that slowly settled back into stillness. The city noise crept in again, distant sirens, the whisper of traffic, the hum of life returning. I stood there until the sun was fully up, until the river turned gold beneath the light. My hands felt numb. The phone screen had gone black, but her reflection still seemed to hover faintly in the glass. For a while, I just watched the water, trying to remember how to breathe. Every sound, every passing car, every gust of wind carried a trace of her voice, that quiet steadiness I'd once taken for granted. Later that day, I went back to the apartment. It felt different, not haunted exactly, just honest. Every small imperfection told a story I hadn't wanted to hear. The missing cushion was back where it belonged. The photograph was gone. The air felt lighter. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and scrolled to her name in my contacts. The thread of messages stared back. Everything we'd ever said, every laugh, every small argument, every silence that meant more than either of us knew. I didn't text her. I didn't delete her either. I just left the screen open, the cursor blinking at the end of a message that would never send. That night, I didn't order dinner. I turned off the lights and sat by the window, watching the city breathe. People walking, cabs passing, the soft pulse of neon reflecting on wet asphalt. Somewhere out there, maybe in some small way, she was still part of it. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I just felt sorry. Not the kind of sorry you say out loud, the kind that lives quietly inside you, reshaping the way you see everything after. Because I finally understood. When she'd said, "Can't make it tonight," it hadn't been the end of something. It had been a pause, a chance to ask, to listen, to care. I'd answered that pause with silence, and that silence had echoed ever since. Now, when the nights grow long and the city hums softly below, I still hear her sometimes, not in words, but in the spaces between them. The places where understanding might have lived if I'd only stayed long enough to hear it. And that, I think, is the cruelest part about ghosts. They don't come back to haunt you. They come back to remind you. Have you ever mistaken someone's distance for disinterest? How many messages have gone unanswered, not because we didn't care, but because we assumed we already knew what they meant? What moments have we rewritten to protect ourselves from guilt, and what truths might we have buried in that silence? When a connection fades, do we really let it die, or do we carry it quietly, replaying what might have changed if we'd just chosen to listen one more time?